Hey, everybody. Just to let you know, this podcast may contain some adult or possibly offensive language.
No nudity, though.
Unless you're thinking about naked people.
The questions they would ask me when I was doing promo on the first album, why aren't you doing hip-hop? Why aren't you an angry black person? And why, they just didn't understand what I was doing.
At what point do you feel like that started to dissipate?
Maybe just about now.
Yo, everyone. This is Stretch Armstrong.
And my name is Bobbito Garcia, a.k.a. Tito Frio Amor.
Welcome to What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito, your source for untold stories and uncovered truths from movers and shakers from around the world.
We're talking art, music, including rock and roll today, film and sports.
And everything in between.
Now, rock out, people. We have an interview with the one and only Lenny Kravitz.
Do we need to even say who he is?
Listen, my mom is in her late 70s and she knows who Lenny Kravitz is.
Lenny has been
Does your mom know who Lenny Kravitz is?
Actually, my mom would not know.
Oh.
Actually. I'm sorry. Shout out to Ava. So Lenny Kravitz actually grew up in Bed-Stuy, not far from where you live and almost exactly where I live right now, which is crazy.
Trippy.
Lenny has been a fixture in music and culture at large for as long as I can remember. What an incredible career. But we dove a lot deeper. I learned a lot about this cat that I didn't know, but he's fascinating.
Yeah, well, including the fact that he has rubbed elbows with just about every icon that is an icon that you could think of.
Even before he was a professional musician.
Well, that's because his parents were...
They had the hookup.
They had the... Softly said. One of the other people who he has been able to grace the stage with as an adult and a performer is the one and only Aretha Franklin, who's unfortunately no longer with us. And note that this interview was recorded the day before Aretha passed. So we make mention of her health, but we don't make mention of her passing. So rest in peace, Aretha Franklin.
Rest in peace, indeed. Coming up next after the break is Lenny Kravitz. Support for this NPR podcast and the following message comes from Babbel, a language program that quickly teaches real-life conversations in a new language. Choose from Spanish, French, Italian, German, and more. Babbel's 10 to 15-minute lessons use interactive dialogues and speech recognition technology to get you speaking your new language correctly and confidently. Try Babbel for free by downloading the app or going to Babbel, BABBEL.com.
Keep It is a podcast that sits at the intersection of pop culture and politics. The host of Keep It, Ira Madison III, Kara R. Brown, and Louis Vertel bring their insight, humor, and brass to discuss the most buzzed-about pop culture moments of the week. Based on the phrase, keep it, coined by Ira on Twitter, every episode features an acidic yet hilarious segment in which the hosts tell the pop moments ruining the culture the most to keep it. New episodes of Keep It are available every Wednesday. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts or wherever you stream your pods. Lenny!
Lenny Kravitz, welcome to the show.
What's good, B? We ask all of our guests.
I'm back in New York,
good?
man.
Yeah.
Just came back from Europe. Just got here a couple days ago. And now I'm hanging out with y'all.
You know, I've read that you're from Brooklyn, maybe. You're from Manhattan, maybe. Like, what's...
I'm from Bed-Stuy. That's where I was born and raised, in Bed-Stuy, Trupin Kosciuszko.
Oh, wait, whoa,
time out. That's too trippy.
What?
I live on that block.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Where?
Well, I don't want to give the address.
Give me that, man.
But Kosciuszko between Throop and Tompkins.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
I was at 368 Troop on the corner of Troop and Kosciuszko, the house on the corner. My folks at that time, after they got married, because my mom grew up in this house too.
Oh,
and
wow.
so, because when my grandfather came from the Bahamas, he came to New York, he worked like 5 jobs, put a down payment on this house. And then my parents were living on the Upper East Side because my dad had this little apartment on 82nd between 5th and Madison. My mom was a secretary at NBC at Rockefeller Center, and at night she did theater. And then my dad was a producer, an assignment editor. He was a journalist over there at NBC. So I would sleep at my grandparents'. My parents would come home from work, go to Brooklyn, have dinner with me, play with me, hang out, and then put me to bed. And then my dad would go do because my dad was also like a jazz promoter. So he would do his thing at night. My mom would go do theater at night, and I would stay with my grandparents. Then when I turned 5, we swapped it. I moved to the Upper East Side, and then I would go to Brooklyn on the weekends. So that's how it went. I'm actually going to come to the block before I leave, because I always go to the block to say what's up to people. So
are there a lot of
a few? There's a few
left.
Because
Bed-Stuy has clearly
no,
changed.
it's changed big time.
That's crazy.
I hadn't been in years, and I went back a few years ago, and I didn't even recognize the place.
Were there still a lot of your old homies?
but some sold and got out. Obviously, because there was a demand, and they're getting paid, and
sure.
they're like, we'll move. And it's a trip. It's just so different from how I grew up there.
And changing still rapidly.
Yeah.
The concept of me living not just in Brooklyn,
right,
but in Bed-Stuy, because we're like hip hop dudes.
I hear you, but yeah.
So Bed-Stuy,
dude,
has such strong
I remember being on the block the first time I saw a guy with 2 turntables and some homemade speakers, made out of plywood. They'd make their own speakers.
Yep.
On the block, and I was like, "What are you doing? You're playing records?" I saw that happen as a small child, man.
That's crazy.
Cool.
Yeah. And by the way, my grandfather was the head of the TKT, Troop Kosciuszko Tompkins Association.
Wow.
My grandfather was a legend in that neighborhood. He raised all the kids that didn't have fathers
really
in the neighborhood. And he was known, everybody called him Grandpa. His name was Albert Roker. And people would ring the bell, "Is Grandpa home?" He was the grandpa to everybody. We would all load up in his car and go to the city, go bowling, go to museums, go on field trips. He was that guy.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I remember growing up in Manhattan,
right.
Going to Brooklyn was a big deal. It was another world, and I'm wondering.
And vice versa. Dude.
That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering growing up in Brooklyn.
I had people in Brooklyn that had never been to Manhattan.
Right.
Never. So no, I ain't been there. It's you can see it. It's right there.
Wait, are you saying now in your 50s?
Then, bro. When I was a kid, there were kids I knew that had never been to Manhattan.
Right.
And how about music as a kid? When did you catch the bug?
Early, Jackson 5 singles.
Right.
Stop the Love You Saved.
Were you buying 45?
I remember that I was on DeKalb Avenue, bro.
Ooh, God, if we could go back in time to that record shop.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was Jackson 5 was the first thing that turned me on.
And where
I remember that song specifically. And then my dad took me to the concert. 1971, Madison Square Garden, Jackson 5. First show.
And that set it off.
That did it.
What was your evolution as a kid? What was your daily thing as a creative person?
Music, acting, because I was, my mom was in theater. She ended up on Broadway. She was in the Negro Ensemble Company. Really amazing theater group, African American theater group in New York City. So I was around the theater a lot, and my parents were always going to gigs. So I grew up going to concerts, hanging out in the clubs, going to jazz clubs, it was that kind of thing, going to Lincoln Center.
Can you remember any specific, let's say, jazz concerts that really stood out?
Duke Ellington at the Rainbow Room. I was 5 years old. It was my birthday, and Duke Ellington and the orchestra played Happy Birthday to me. It was pretty cool. And I remember being at the sound check and sitting on Duke's lap while he played piano.
That is insane,
Not bad.
bro. Not
bad.
Pretty good
Not
for
bad.
5.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
Exactly. Then it was James Brown at the Apollo when he had the new band with Bootsy.
Mm-hmm.
And Clyde Stubblefield on drums.
Ridiculous.
You were there.
I was there at the Apollo. I was probably about 6.
So you were on Duke Ellington's lap.
Right.
He's singing "Happy Birthday." I know you had encounters with Miles Davis as a kid.
Absolutely.
Who were some of these other illustrious people that
Ella
you were going to?
Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan,
Wait, time out.
Lionel Hampton. What?
Time-
What?
As in you perform with them?
No,
Or not just as a kid.
No, hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hanging.
Maya Angelou, Nina Simone. My parents were in that group.
Yeah.
you know?
Now, did any of these people ever have conversations with you as a kid that went beyond the superficial?
The first guy to really talk to me straight and actually talk to my parents on my behalf was Taj Mahal. I think my father was complaining that I wasn't spending enough time on my schoolwork and I was playing the guitar too much. And I was probably about 12, and Taj told my dad, just leave the boy alone. Just leave him alone. He knows what he's doing. Leave him alone. He was like the first professional musician to tell me, like, yo, stay focused. Told my dad to lay off me a little bit, which didn't work. And then Miles, later, I never talked with Miles about my music until Let Love Rule, actually, because at the end of my Let Love Rule tour, we ended up on a plane together, and he saw me, and he was like, Lenny! And called over, and I went and sat by him, and he told me that he heard the record, and he was so proud of me, and really liked the record. And then I invited him to come play on Mama Said album, to play a solo, but that was the last time I saw him, and he died shortly after that.
Now, Cicely Tyson
Yeah.
was married to Miles Davis for a bit.
That was the connection, because my mother and Cicely were like sisters.
And she was your godmother.
Still is.
Still right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
Does she impart any jewels to you?
She's
probably like a handbook of jewels.
She's an alien. She's on like another level. She's otherworldly. I don't know what you have to say about her. She's strong, beautiful, talented, smart, knows so much about life and health. I mean, she extended Miles' life by many years by changing his life and getting him. I mean, like, she was the one back in the 60s into all the organic and the juicing and the this and the, before it was even cute. Right. People were just like, "What are you doing?" Right.
Not surprised. I mean, she's 93 now, and her skin is amazing.
I'm not allowed to talk about that. She's. I think she looked like she's about 45.
You just want to get that phone call.
Yeah, she looks really. She's.
Bless her.
There's no time with Cicely. She's limitless.
It's a sad week for music lovers.
Man.
Perhaps the greatest singer of all time, Aretha
Yes.
Franklin, is in poor health, but I know you've shared moments with her.
Mm-hmm. The first time I ever saw her was actually that night at the Jackson 5 concert in 71 at the Garden.
She was on stage as well?
No, she was sitting near us. And I remember her walking in, and all the flash bulbs started going. People were like bugging out, and she had like this fur thing and a fur hat, and was just like walked in like the queen that she is.
Sure.
Aretha Franklin records are really big on my list as an influence. Huge. The recordings, the songs, obviously her singing and her piano playing. If she never opened her mouth, she would be in my top 3 piano players. I love the way she plays piano. Did you see that footage when she played at the Kennedy Center?
Yes.
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
She said, because Carole King was getting inducted into the Kennedy Center honors, and Aretha came out and played Natural Woman and played the piano and sang it. And I hadn't seen her play and sing together in such a long time. Came out with her purse, put her purse down. I ain't leaving my purse back there. I don't know who's back there. But she and I got to sing a duet with Miss Franklin at Madison Square Garden for this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. We remained friendly, but I mean, Aretha Franklin, bro, that's heavy. She's such a major part of all of our lives, and the greatest singer, absolutely.
So what was that like, standing next to her and singing?
In
Madison Square Garden.
It's ridiculous. It was like stupid. And rehearsals were really fun. That was the most fun, was the rehearsing with her. And Miss Franklin is very funny and always telling jokes and pulling gags. And she's just fun. She's like, your auntie, But it was an honor to be able to spend some time with her.
I know it's probably an impossible question, but you got a favorite
Aretha
song?
A favorite?
Daydreaming and I'm thinking of you.
That's a really good one. If I had to pick one,
Rocksteady, baby.
I'd have to pick Respect. If it had to be one. And by the way, I listened to Respect this morning. The drum sound is banging. It's bigger and fatter than you think it is. If you listen to it, it's pop. That snare drum is it's like it's John Bonham back there playing that drum set. But then I have favorites like one of my later favorites, and a song that I play a lot is Angel. Gotta find me an angel. You know that one?
Not.
We got our singing.
Baby.
Yeah.
Looking for their partner, looking for that angel, and I play it a lot. It's a beautiful song.
You're born in the 60s, and I'm we're not too far apart. I'm born in 66.
Okay.
And, so I remember the air of New York at that point. The civil rights movement.
Absolutely.
The beginnings of the Black Power movement.
Right.
Being too young to really grasp, what that was about,
right.
the language of it.
Right.
But certainly like getting traces of it and feeling something, like just being curious about it. And I'm wondering, like in your experiences, because you're in spaces that are high art, but you're also in spaces that are like, the hood as well,
right.
simultaneously.
Absolutely.
And you're being infused with both of these essences in a way that I'm wondering, what...
I didn't understand the whole race thing until I was probably in first grade. Like, okay, growing up in Brooklyn, our neighborhood was predominantly black and Puerto Rican, and everybody was cool. My parents' group being artists of all kinds, the house was always mixed. It was every race, everybody, every kind of person, and everybody was cool. My dad's white, my mom's black. I don't think anything of it. My parents took me to school, and everybody's it's first day of school, so everybody's parents are walking the kids to school, and everybody else's parents matched, except mine, right? And I remember this kid walked up to us in the hallway, and he goes, "Your dad's white," and he pointed his finger like that, and it was like I didn't understand it. It was he made a big statement. He pointed. It was like a thing. It was loud, and that's the first time that I understood something was going on. And then I talked to my mother about it, and she explained, you're this, you're that. You should be proud of both sides of your heritage. One thing that she told me that was really interesting, and this is 6 years old, I didn't understand it till many, many years later. She said, even though you're half this, half that, society is only going to see you as black. That was a very interesting thing to tell a 6-year-old. And then years later, I understood what she was talking about. Yeah, but in our circle and in our life, it was beautiful.
Sure.
But my parents, even in, okay, so my parents got married in 1963, right? So I'm born 1964. I remember them telling me stories, even walking in New York City, which was, the North and liberal compared to the South, and that, some people would spit at the feet of my parents, seeing them together. My dad once took my mom to a hotel, and the guy told my father, no prostitutes allowed.
Oh, my God.
It was obviously an issue, to a lot of people.
But back in Brooklyn, it wasn't.
Well, Brooklyn was just, I had Jewish grandparents, Russian Jews, that were in Sheepshead Bay. And then I had my African-American and Caribbean grandparents in Bed-Stuy. But within the neighborhood, everybody was cool. Everybody looked out for each other. There wasn't any kind of beef going on. It was cool.
I'm curious about, you moved to LA.
Yeah, I was 11, so that was like 1975.
And so LA has, skateboard scene. They got
it was a complete bug out for me at that time, because I'm 11. I'm a New York kid. I'm on the subway. I'm on the bus. I'm independent.
Yeah.
You know, because growing up in New York at that time, like as kids, we were in the street.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I left the house in the morning. I didn't come home till
Right.
the evening.
Yeah.
You know, it was that way.
And no satellite parents around.
No.
You know, it's just
So
like-
we get to LA, and we didn't have an apartment yet because my mom was like, she wasn't sure that this show, The Jeffersons, was going to last. She was like, because she went out there to do a pilot, right? And she said, you know, there's this show because Norman Lear had seen her on Broadway, and he said there's going to be this show that I'm going to spin off from All in the Family. So come out and audition. She went out to LA. She auditioned. She got the role, but Norman. Well, it was funny, the story, because Norman Lear said, "Now listen, you got the part. I want you to play this woman. But what I didn't tell you was the husband, that the guy that's gonna be your husband on the show. He's white, and I don't know if you're gonna. Are you comfortable with that? Because you're gonna have to, like, you know, kiss him and hug him, and you know, it's your husband." So my mom reached in her wallet, pulled out a picture of my dad, and said, "That's my husband."
Bong.
He's like, "You got the part." So we went out to LA, and she thought maybe it'll last a season. Who knows? You know. So we lived with my godmother in Santa Monica. So this is 75. I remember the first day waking up after we got there in the morning. I look out the window. There's nobody, no people, just cars. Nobody's walking. Where's everybody? Quickly started learning about all this skateboard and surf culture. I started skateboarding for the first time, listening to a lot of rock and roll music. Because in New York, I was like WBLS. I wasn't that hip to Hendrix and Zeppelin and The Who and Cream and, you know, all this stuff. But all the kids I was hanging out with in LA, in Santa Monica, their parents were hippies. A lot of weed and a lot of rock records and skateboards and the beach. And it was a whole new lifestyle. I'd come back to New York, summers, I'd get to come hang with my grandmother. And then it was hip hop, and I was like, what's this? Like, because I remember showing up one summer, and my boy played me the first, "The bridge is over, the bridge is over." And I was like, what is this? Yeah. And he was like breakdancing and showing, I was like, what? Well, I missed all that. I had my skateboard. Nobody had a skateboard. Nobody was skateboarding. So it was this back and forth thing. And then I go back to LA with Bookie Down Productions and all this and that, and then they'd be like, what is this? Like,
I know growing up in New York City, I was really patriotic. That pride in being a New Yorker. So I'm just wondering if, like, the day you found out you're moving to LA.
oh, it was like, I showed up in LA, I was like, yo, I'm from New York. Yo, I don't play that, you know? And they'd make fun of me because I had an accent.
Yeah.
They come to me, say that. They'd show me like a piece of fruit. It's like a piece of fruit, right? Say that. What is that? Orange. They're like, ah, because to them it was an orange. Right. What's this? What do you call this? What's this? Hot dog. Ah, they were laughing. What's this? Water. You know.
Water, yeah.
They'd make fun of me, you know.
Yeah.
And then somehow my accent just got kind of neutral, you know.
Your mother, she's from
Right.
the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And I think you have a sense of having roots in the Bahamas.
That's like my heart. I mean,
Right.
I live between there and Paris, but that's my heart, the Bahamas. Yeah.
And so what does living there mean to you?
It's I live in a small town with about 500 people. We all know each other. We all look out for each other. It's really basic, and I love it. It's my favorite place to be because I'm just a local. They don't care about what I do or what my life is over here. Once I leave the island, they just, I'm a local. That's it. It's a place where I can really be myself and just chill. And I have my studio there. I make my music there, and it enables me to stay there for long periods of time. You know, when I'm making an album, I might stay there for 6, 7, 8 months straight, and I really fall deep into the bush. My first spot for 15 years is an Airstream trailer, so I live in a trailer, which is really great because it's really small. You can only put what you really, really, really need in there. So you got your couple clothes, your whatever book thing or this or your whatever stuff you got. It's you got to keep it real lean. And it's a great way to live, you know? It's a great way to live. And then I built a little wooden, little room, you know, a little shack.
I'm curious, in that type of tranquil environment, your current work, Raised Vibrations, where you're reactionary to some of the current politics and current ongoings in the world. And in a space like that, how do you get angst or energy or reactionary energy to sort of say, I'm going to combat this with my sound and my lyrics and my music,
Right.
As an attempt towards some level of healing or some type
Just
of...
in my head, like the location doesn't have anything to do with it. The location is a beautiful place to work and a great place to stay focused. But whatever I want to do, it's inside of me. So if it's going to be mellow or it's going to be heavy or it's going to be funky or more rock or whatever it may be, that's just within me.
So one thing that I found remarkable when you first came out in the late 80s was that there was, you know, synth pop.
Yes.
There was hip hop, you know, which was heavy on the drum.
Absolutely.
But it was sampled. So your sound kind of came apart from it, but also a result of it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely went in a different direction on purpose. I saw where everybody was going, and I wanted to make the records that I grew up on.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder records, Beatles records, whatever, Al Green records, Curtis Mayfield records, whatever it may be. The technology was moving forward. Everybody's going for this 80s sound and all the big gated reverbs and all the digital stuff and blah, blah. And I wanted it to sound really intimate, like those records I grew up on. Innervisions was a...
By Stevie Wonder, for those who don't know.
Was a big example for me as far as sound goes. So I knew this engineer that was into that. So we worked together. His name was Henry Hirsch, and he had a studio over in Jersey in Hoboken called Waterfront at the time, and it was like $35 an hour. We got into it, and I knew I was going away from what was happening.
I mean, thankfully.
You know? And
it was refreshing, honestly, like, to, you know...
Everybody bugged out. They were like, what are those effects? It's like, there's no effects. What's that on your vocal? It's just a microphone. There's no reverb even on this track, you know?
This is for your first album?
For Let Love Rule, yeah.
Really? So what was the music like that got you signed?
I made Let Love Rule on my own, then took it around.
Okay.
And people didn't understand it, you know, at all. And then I had one meeting at Virgin Records. I remember I was out in LA at that time, and I was given 5 minutes to play some music. So I put in a cassette of Let Love Rule. It was actually that song. I played it, and I'm sitting there. You know, I've been turned down by everybody. And she said, wait just a minute. And she went and got another guy. The guy was Jeff Aroff, who was the president of the label. And then she said, play it again. I played it again and said, could you play another one? So I think it was B, the song B. And played that. Wait just a minute. They leave us in the room. They go get a third guy who was Jordan Harris, the partner of Jeff Aroff. Play those songs again. So we're playing the songs, and they got paper, and they're writing, and they're passing the papers back and forth, and I'm just looking at it. And
this sounds bizarre.
At the end of the three songs they listened to, Jeff and Jordan said, come to our office. And I said, okay, and went in the office. He goes, we want to sign you. Just like that. I was like, what? After years of trying to get signed, nobody getting it, nobody understanding it. It's not black enough. It's not white enough. It's not this enough. The things that they wrote on the paper that I got to see after was John Lennon meets Prince.
Oh, get out.
That's how they explained it. So, and they signed it, and they actually said, we have no idea how to market you. We don't know if you're going to sell. We don't know. We don't have a clue of how to even deal with you yet, but we believe in it. I thought it was really honest. At that time, all the A&R departments, it was like black A&R, pop A&R.
Right.
Very distinct, very separated. What they did was they sent me to Europe. They're like, we don't have a clue what to do with you. Take your ass to Europe. So they sent me to London, they sent me to Paris, they sent me to Amsterdam, and they sent me to Hamburg, Germany, right? So that's where I went, and that's where they started pushing me. They were more open, a little less of the boxes and the formats, and a little less.
Well,
But
Radio Nova in Paris.
Dude, that's my favorite station.
Oh my God.
That's my favorite station on planet Earth.
The overnight.
They play
the overnight.
everything.
The
Dude.
overnight, right?
Dude,
6 p.m. on?
that's on my house 24/7 when I'm home. Just I put Nova on.
Yeah.
And you'll hear Fela Kuti next to Serge Gainsbourg, next to
Yes.
Next
some
to
like
Janis Joplin.
Yeah, next to
To
some
Blaze,
next to some
Louis
Senegalese
Vega. Yeah,
music,
yeah,
Next
next
to
to
Clips.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's-
and then throw you some like hip hop.
Tribe Called Quest. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. For sure.
It's so
It's the best.
tasty, right?
Yeah.
It's yummy.
It is. It is. And thank God that
delicious.
there's one station that will still do that. But the questions they would ask me when I was doing promo on the first album, why aren't you doing hip hop? And why aren't you this? And why aren't you an angry black person? And why, they just didn't understand what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But, here we are.
At what point along your journey, working with record labels, touring, making music, interacting with the public, did that kind of sense of confusion and people trying to sort of get clarity on their own perceptions by putting you in a box?
Right.
Do you feel like that started to dissipate?
Maybe just about now.
30 years later for the debut of the album.
It's coming. Like now they're like, okay, all right, you got it. We'll give it to you.
It sounds like you enjoy it.
I mean,
now,
even during like my biggest success at the time, like when 5 came out, that album with Fly Away and all those tracks, we had to really push hard and break down walls and barriers to get on radio, and we had to actually help change radio. It was a struggle, but then when they would hit, they wouldn't go away, But then each time I'd release a new album, it was like they didn't know who who are you? Well, we just had this hit. Don't matter. Yeah, start over from scratch, But it was fun, because I was gonna do my thing and that was it. So I never conformed to what was going on the radio. I never chased the fashion of what was happening at that time. I just made whatever came out of me. I didn't really know how to do anything else,
Let's hear a little snippet of the single "Low" off your new LP, Raise Vibration. Michelle, can you pop that in?
It's quite a painting. It's a lot of different things going on, different styles.
But that was the first song in the whole sort of body
Yes,
of work that
yes.
ended up being this album, Raise
Yes.
Vibration. But I read that Low came to you after a long sort of dry spell.
Well, it wasn't a dry spell. I know I gave that interview to Rolling Stone. It kind of said something and it kind of got a little misconstrued. But basically what was going on was that people around me and people that work with me were saying, you know what? You should work with a producer, and you should do this, and you should collaborate with this guy. You should do this. And it's not that I'm against it, but the way I work is just a very organic way, and it's just like I do my thing, and I play the instruments, and I produce it, and I write it, so I don't really need to be around other folks when I do that. But they were saying, drop your ego. It wasn't even about ego, but you should drop your ego and you should do this and you should work with these people and work with that, and you got to be contemporary and all that. Everything against everything that I've ever done or the way I've worked, because I've always gone down my path. But I said, you know what? I'm going to be open and I'm going to do it. So I worked with some people. It still wasn't the record, the album, the statement that I was going to put out. So I just got real quiet. I don't know how many weeks it was later. I started hearing music in my sleep. This was the time that I was being offered whatever it is I was supposed to do. I was then given the direction, which is, again, the way I like to work. I want to receive whatever's mine. We all have our own things that we receive. And that's when it started. And then I did Low, and then the floodgates opened, and then the whole album just spilled out. And that was what I was supposed to do, and I knew it because it felt right, and I knew that was who I was at that moment.
So I read that you're working on an autobiographical film project, And I just recently released an autobiographical documentary of my life.
Oh, I want to watch it.
Yeah, titled Rock Rubber 45.
You got it? Is it out?
It's available.
Great. I want to see that. Yeah.
Thank you.
What your boy didn't get one? What's up?
Well, I did an autobiographical documentary about the two of us as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done two. So, but interesting to, when you approach an autobiographical documentary is that I had to tell my narrative, but I couldn't without telling the narrative of my parents.
Of course.
So I'm curious in terms of your approach, how much are you going to share that maybe?
I think it'll be based on, but it'll be a different character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be exact, but it'll be somebody like myself.
Where are you at with the project? Are you like first draft?
The music's done, and we're about to get into it with a writer, trying to get it going so I can drop it as the next project. Yeah.
Oh, we look forward to that because it's just
you.
what you shared with us today, and as much research and as much as I personally have appreciated your music over the years. I'm learning so much.
Oh, thank you.
About your paths, and I'm like, it's mind blowing.
Thank you.
It really is. I mean,
Thank
what
you.
you've been able to experience as a human being.
It's a blessing. All of us, right? The fact that we're sitting here, you're, kids from New York that just love music.
Yeah.
And have been blessed to have a career and be able to support your life off of the thing that you just love that you would have done for free.
Your daughter, Zoe,
Yeah.
who's a star in her own right at this point.
She's amazing.
She's got one foot in acting, another foot in music.
Mm-hmm.
What's that relationship like? And was there a conversation where she was like, Dad,
this
is what I want to do? And you were like,
I thought she would end up being completely out of this business, acting or music. I had no idea. And then when she was a teenager, she said she wanted to try acting. We got her an agent, and she ended up getting her very first job was in a movie with Catherine Zeta-Jones called No Reservations, about a chef. And Zoe had one scene, and she did it, and she said, I think I like this. And then her next job was with Jodie Foster in this movie called The Brave One. Couple of scenes, really good, acting with Jodie Foster, and then it just
Top of the food chain.
and then it just kept going.
it gets better.
And
It gets better.
and-
Meryl Streep.
and now she's acting with Meryl Streep. Yeah, so it's all good. She's out in LA right now doing Big Little Lies and finishing that up, and couldn't be more proud and pleased, and just because she's doing what it is that she loves, and she works hard and she's good at it, and it's wonderful to watch.
I mean, I'm sure Zoe's, she's learned so much from you just through osmosis. I'm curious if there's anything that you've learned from her.
It's tons. She's way hipper than I am. I learn from her all the time. I mean, in fact, one of the songs on this album, I recut because she didn't dig the way I did it the first time. So she's like, no, that ain't it. It's not right. So I completely changed the song It's Enough. I don't know if you heard that one. She didn't tell me to recut it. She just was like, I'm not feeling it. And like that. And then I, of course, couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm like, damn, what is this? And then I recut it and understood why it wasn't right. And then I played it for her like way later. She didn't even know. I said, that song that I did that you didn't like the way it was? I said, I recut it. Played it for her. She's like, oh, that's much better. She's got great ear. She's got great style. She's got great instinct. And she's the new generation. So,
Well, I
listen.
Yeah, well, I love that as a parent you can listen, because not every older person is gonna be open to critique from a young person.
Yeah. Well, my granddad, the one we talked about from Bed-Stuy, he lived up into his 90s, and even up until that point, his friends were like, he had friends that were in their 20s and their 30s, for every age. Like he especially liked to hang out with younger people. He liked to talk and philosophize and get into conversations, deep conversations about things, and he loved to hear where they were coming from and what he could learn from that. Most of the time, an older person says, this is the way you do it, and that's the way it is, and that I don't want to hear it, right? He would say, this is the way I did it, and this is the way it worked for me. when you come up with a better way, show me. And if they did, he'd say, that is better. He had the kids respect him, the way he did things and what he did as an adult and how he learned. He was very smart, but was always open to, there's a better way, show me. I'd like to learn, you know?
If only the entire world could be that.
Right?
Indeed.
Right? Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come right back. Just a quick breather. You can have some water, and for something special for you.
Okay, cool.
Some things were meant for each other. Fries and milkshakes, selfies and duck face. And now, what's good with Stretch and Bobbito and Spotify? Yes, the same app that has millions of songs now also has thousands of podcasts.
On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite shows and discover new ones. To subscribe to ours, search for What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito, tap follow, and get every new episode delivered to you.
Podcasts on Spotify. They're streaming right now. And now, and now.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty, one of your new hosts for On Point. We take on the news with the smartest guests and live calls from every corner of the country. NPR's David Folkenflik hosts the Friday Week in the News. Join David and me for On Point.
Oh, the drums. You know what that means. It's time for the impression session.
Here's how it works. We play you a track.
Right.
You react. It's as simple as that.
Okay, great.
Stretch, you up first?
Ba-boom.
A world of beauty for beautiful you.
Je suis à vous, black woman.